Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today, I'm going to go my review of AEW's Double or Nothing. Starting off the night, man, we have an Owen Hart Cup tournament final for the women's tournament. It is Jamie Hayter taking on Mercedes Moné, where the winner will go on to face Toni Storm for the AEW women's title at All In. The match itself, man, I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Hayter and Moné, with Moné keeping the pace of the match. Moné then hits a Meteora off the apron on Hayter, looked absolutely brutal. Moné then gets Jamie Hayter in the middle of the ring, hitting 3 Amigos on Jamie Hayter, paying homage to Eddie Guerrero. Moné then hits a backstabber on Hayter in the middle of the ring. Moné then hits multiple backstabbers on Hayter. Moné then applies a statement maker, but the hold is broken. Hayter then hits a Death Valley driver on Moné. Hayter then hits a devastating lariat on Moné for a near fall. Hayter then gets up, hits a tombstone pile driver on Moné for a near fall, but Moné hits a devastating roll-up on Jamie Hayter, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and moving on to face Toni Storm at All In for the AEW Women's title, is Mercedes Moné. A couple of things I want to talk about, man, when it pertains to this matchup. A lot of people that were, leading into Double or Nothing, a lot of people were not really thrilled with this card, myself included. A lot of people were already, speculating that it was all so very predictable of the outcomes of the matches just based upon what we've been seeing with AEW as of late. For me personally, I wanted Jamie Hayter to win in this matchup. There's obviously some unfinished business there between Jamie Hayter and Toni Storm. I don't think that, obviously, that's not going to happen. That matchup will not take place. I made my statement on Mercedes Moné, and I stick to my guns on that. Mercedes Moné is in business for herself. Now, do I think Mercedes Moné is going to be, an AEW lifer? No, I do not. I think once her contract comes up with AEW, there is going to be contract talks probably between AEW and WWE. I think she's trying to invest a lot in herself right now and raise her stock to when the time comes for her contract negotiations happen, whether it's with AEW or WWE. She's trying to make herself into a viable product, man. She's trying to make sure that she crosses all her T's and dots her I's in AEW for the possibility of returning to WWE. And this was something that, one of the reasons why she went over to AEW is because she was not making the money that she wanted to make in her return to WWE. So AEW came in, offered her the money that she was looking for, and she ended up signing with AEW. But, a lot of people are frustrated with this outcome. I think ultimately what's going to happen here is that Mercedes Moné is going to obviously walk into All In. She will be challenging Toni Storm for the AEW Women's Championship. To be honest with you guys, until I see it, and until I see with my own 2 eyes, I don't know if Moné is going to lose, especially going into All In, which is crazy. Because the thing of it is, Toni Storm is probably, if not the greatest creation that AEW has ever created, is in its entire existence now for about 6 years. Toni Storm's fantastic. Toni Storm is great. The timeless Toni Storm character is awesome. And then we have Mercedes Moné, who at now, she's 25, 26-0 right now in AEW. So, seemingly, bro, it just doesn't seem that she's going to lose a match. And the way it's looking right now, it looks like she will be walking into All In and walking out All In AEW Women's Champion. I hope I'm wrong, but the way it's looking right now, Moné will walk in and walk out AEW's Women's Champion. Moving on from that, we have a tag team matchup. It is FTR taking on Daniel Garcia and Nigel McGuinness. I thought it was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between FTR, Garcia, and McGuinness, with FTR keeping the pace of the match. Nigel and Dax both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Wheeler hitting a Tower of London off the apron. Garcia then applies a Dragon Slayer in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. FTR then hit a Shatter Machine, taking out Nigel McGuinness ringside. Dax Harwood then hits a pile driver on Garcia in the middle of the ring. And then Dax applies a sharpshooter. The referee sounds for the bell. And your winners of the match are FTR. Hats off to FTR for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's a stretcher match. It is Ricochet taking on Mark Briscoe. I thought this was a really good match. Back and forth matchup between Ricochet and Briscoe, with Briscoe keeping the pace of the match. Briscoe then hits an elbow drop off the apron, landing on the stretcher. Briscoe then hits Ricochet with a chair shot. Ricochet then hits Briscoe with a chair shot of his own. Briscoe then hits Ricochet with a crutch, followed by a J Driller on Ricochet. Ricochet then hits a Froggy Bow through a table. Ricochet then gets up, hits Briscoe with the scissors. Briscoe is busted wide open, followed by Ricochet hitting a spirit gun on Briscoe. Ricochet then throws Briscoe into the ambulance. He closes the door, and the winner of the match is Ricochet. Hats off to Ricochet for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a tag team matchup for the AEW Tag Team titles. It is the Hurt Syndicate defending the AEW Tag Team titles against the Sons of Texas, Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes. I thought it was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between both teams with the Hurt Syndicate keeping the pace of the match. Guevara then hits a shooting star press to the outside. Rhodes then hits a crossroads for a near fall. Lashley hits a spear for a near fall as well. MJF then attacks Dustin Rhodes ringside with the referee being distracted. Lashley then goes to hit a spear, sends Dustin through the barricade, and then Shelton Benjamin ends up hitting the finish, pins for the 3. And your winners of the match and still AEW Tag Team Champions are the Hurt Syndicate. Hats off to the Hurt Syndicate for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Continental Championship matchup. It is Okada defending the Continental title against Speedball Mike Bailey. I thought it was a really good match. Back and forth matchup between Okada and Bailey, with Bailey keeping the pace of the match. Bailey ends up hitting a moonsault to the outside, taking out Okada. Bailey then hits a moonsault again to the outside. Bailey then hits a running shooting star press on Okada for a near fall. Okada then gets up, hits an elbow drop off the top rope, landing on Bailey. Bailey then somehow gets up, hits a Falcon Arrow on Okada in the middle of the ring. Okada and Bailey both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Bailey hitting a backflip knee drop on Okada off the apron. Bailey then goes for a shooting star press, but Okada counters it with a drop kick, and Okada follows that with his signature Rainmaker on Speedball Mike Bailey, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and still Continental Champion is Okada. Hats off to Okada for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have an AEW Women's Championship matchup. It is Toni Storm defending the AEW Women's Championship against Mina Shirakawa. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Storm and Shirakawa, with Shirakawa keeping the pace of the match. Shirakawa then applies a figure 4 leg lock on Storm, but the hold is broken. Shirakawa and Storm both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Shirakawa then applying another figure 4 leg lock, but the hold is broken. Mina Shirakawa then hits a glamorous driver on Toni Storm for a near fall, but Storm hits a Storm Zero on Mina Shirakawa in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and still AEW Women's Champion is Toni Storm. Hats off to Toni Storm, and she will go on to All In to face Mercedes Moné. Moving on from that, we have the Anarchy in the Arena matchup. It is Kenny Omega teaming up with Swerve, Willow Nightingale, and the Ops, Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs, taking on the Death Riders, Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, Mina Shafir, and Claudio Castagnoli, as well as the Young Bucks. Before the match even gets started, man, the Young Bucks entrance was absolutely ridiculous. I thought it was hilarious. But the match itself, I thought it was a great match, man. I thought it was a really good match, back and forth matchup. Omega, Swerve, Nightingale, and the Ops were keeping the pace of the match. They had music playing throughout the entire match, which I thought was awesome. Omega hits a moonsault off the barricade. Hobbs then puts Moxley through a table. Swerve hits a rolling flatliner in the middle of the ring. Nick Jackson then hits a Canadian Destroyer. Young Bucks then hit a Melter Driver off the apron. Nick Jackson then hits a Swanton off the stage structure through onto Hobbs, landing through a table. Hobbs then gets up, hits multiple spine busters in the middle of the ring. Nick Jackson and Swerve then hit a 450 off the top rope. Willow then hits a spear on everyone. Omega then hits multiple Snapdragon suplexes in the middle of the ring. Young Bucks then super kick pretty much everyone, including the referee. Willow and Swerve then hit a Melter Driver of their own. Hook then comes out of nowhere, attacks Claudio. Samoa Joe looks surprised, but Hook ends up walking off. Samoa Joe then hits a Muscle Buster in the middle of the ring. Gabe Kidd is here. He attacks Samoa Joe. Moxley then chokes out Omega. Omega then hits a one-winged angel off the stage structure on Matt Jackson through an exploding table. Swerve then hits a Swerve Stomp with pretty much tacks on his shoes. Pins for the 3. And your winners of the match are Kenny Omega, Swerve, Willow Nightingale, and the Ops. A couple of things I want to talk about with this matchup quickly, man. Number one, a lot of people, and I even said the same thing too. A lot of people were really not thrilled with the Anarchy in the Arena matchup for Double or Nothing. And the reason why is because the match itself loses its aura. Because we get it every single year for Double or Nothing. To me, honestly, for what it's worth, this one was really special. To be honest with you, the way they had it set up, with the music playing throughout the entire match, and the fans were really into it. It kind of for 1 second there, it kind of took me back to the original feeling of AEW, and it was a great moment. The fans were invested in the match, and honestly, up to that point, it was a very long night. So it was great to see everybody involved in this matchup. There was stuff happening all over the place, all over the arena. We do see Hook. Hook does return. He does help out Samoa Joe, but it looks like there's some hostility there between Hook and Samoa Joe, which, I can see that happening, due to the fact that Samoa Joe quickly replaced Hook and brought in Powerhouse Hobbs, and they won the trios titles. Then, now that Hook was injured, now Hook's back. Hook could be looking for some answers. He could be looking for some vengeance possibly against Samoa Joe in the Ops because of what Samoa Joe did by pretty much kicking him out and bringing in Powerhouse Hobbs. So it looks like we're going to hear something hopefully from Hook on Dynamite, some kind of rebuttal. But the Anarchy in Arena match was great, man. I'm a big fan of that match. Do we need it every year? No. Do we need it when it matters? Yeah, and I think it did matter. Obviously the Death Riders are a grade A pain in the ass for AEW as well as the fan base for AEW, because Jon Moxley seemingly and the Death Riders are just doing whatever they can just to destroy this company with inside. But yeah, the match was needed. But again, it's one of those things where we don't need it every single Double or Nothing. I would use the match when it's needed. Maybe we skip next year and do Anarchy in Arena the following year. We also had Stadium Stampede as well. So we're going to see how this plays out. And I'm also going to let you guys know, too, that, AEW also has Blood and Guts. So we're going to see how this is going to really play into this as far as, the Death Riders team and the team that we saw go up against the Death Riders in the Anarchy in the Arena. Maybe there's some unfinished business here between these two teams. And we might see something else possibly down the road, possibly happening at Blood and Guts with these two teams. So we'll figure out what's going on with that. But all in all, man, it was a really good match, and I actually enjoyed it very much. Moving on from that, we go into a six-man tag team matchup. It is Paragon, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong taking on the Don Callis family, Josh Alexander, Konosuke Takeshita, as well as Kyle Fletcher. The match itself, it was a decent match, back-and-forth matchup between both teams, with Paragon keeping the pace of the match. But Kyle Fletcher ends up hitting his signature brainbuster in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are the Don Callis family. After the match, the Don Callis family then attack Paragon. The Hellhounds are here. Tanahashi is here. Then an all-out fight happens with the Hellhounds and Tanahashi. It looks like this might be setting up possibly the road to Forbidden Door. So we'll see how it happens. Forbidden Door is not for a while. We got, All In coming up, so we're going to see. Maybe we'll get some answers on why Tanahashi was there at Double or Nothing. And moving on from that, we go into the main event of Double or Nothing. It is Will Ospreay versus Adam Page in the Owen Hart Cup tournament final for the men's tournament. This was a great match, man. Back and forth matchup between Page and Ospreay, with Ospreay keeping the pace of the match. Ospreay hits a springboard forearm, taking out Page. Page then gets up, hits a fall-away slam, sending Ospreay into the barricade. Ospreay and Page then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Ospreay hitting a Stun Dog Millionaire on Page. Ospreay then hits a Blue Thunder Bomb on Page for a near fall. Page gets up, hits a moonsault to the outside, taking out Ospreay. Page then applies a sharpshooter in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. Ospreay then hits a Spanish Fly on Adam Page. Page then gets up, hits his signature Buckshot Lariat on Ospreay. Ospreay gets up, hits a Shooting Star Press on Page. Page then gets up, hits a Tombstone Piledriver on Ospreay for a near fall. Ospreay then hits a Hidden Blade, followed by a Styles Clash off the apron. Ospreay then hits an Oz Cutter on Page for a near fall, followed by a Hidden Blade for a near fall as well. Page then goes for a Deadeye on the announce table, but the table ends up giving out. Page then hits a Deadeye on Ospreay, followed by a Buckshot Lariat for a near fall. Both guys, you can tell, are pretty much, just going back and forth throughout this match. Ospreay then hits a Hidden Blade on Page, followed by a Stormbreaker for a near fall. Ospreay then hits a V-Trigger, straight out of Kenny Omega's book. But Page somehow gets up, hits a Buckshot Lariat, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and moving on to face Jon Moxley at All In for the AEW's World Championship, is Adam Page. A couple of things I want to talk about with you guys, man, as far as Double or Nothing is concerned before I get the hell up out of here. Number one, I thought it was a decent show. I mean, honestly, for what it's worth, the number one match that I think everybody, including myself, was anticipating was the men's tournament final for the Owen Will Ospreay versus Adam Page. So let's talk about that. A lot of emotions were going into this match. I told you guys last week, man, this was one of those matches where it was literally 50-50, to be honest with you. Any guy could have walked out and won this matchup, and I don't think anybody would have been disappointed. With that being said, do I think Adam Page needed this match more? Yes, I do. Just from what he said in his promo with Ospreay before Double or Nothing have happened, that he had 2 years of hell trying to find the light that he was dealing with, being in 2 years of hell and all the stress and everything going on behind the scenes for Adam Page. Him wanting, his wife to, look at him like that she did the first time they met, make his kids happy. This was very important for Adam Page. And Adam Page, he's an AEW guy. This is one of the guys that helped create this company. He was there day one. And he's also one of those guys, too, man, where seemingly every single year, he's progressively getting better, in my honest opinion. And he's always in some kind of storyline every single year for AEW, whether it's a really big storyline or a very small storyline. Adam Page plays I would say, a really good role, if not a significant role, into AEW. Was I happy with the outcome of this match? Absolutely. I think Adam Page has to be the guy, or should be the guy, that beats Jon Moxley at All In. Now, do I think that will happen? I don't know. I think it's something that, Tony Khan gave us the storybook ending for Adam Page as far as him winning the tournament. But do I think he's going to completely finish his story and have Adam Page walk out All In World Heavyweight Champion? I don't know. There's a couple ideas that I have on why I don't think Adam Page will walk out All In AEW World Champion, unfortunately. Tony Khan and AEW seemingly have this immense trust for Jon Moxley. And my belief is that Jon Moxley could very well walk out AEW's All In, still World Heavyweight Champion. Now, this will be a huge fucking problem. Because if Moxley goes into All In, he walks out still AEW World Champion, that would mean that Jon Moxley has seemingly held the AEW World title that we haven't seen for roughly 9 months. That's a huge problem. I mean, this is also their world title, the title that we have not seen on television since last, October? So that's a huge problem. And the speculation is, as well, as Darby Allin obviously is on his way back to AEW. He wanted to take, some vacation time. He wanted to climb Mount Everest and plant an AEW flag on top of Mount Everest. And he was successful. And he's on his way back down from Mount Everest, and he should be making his AEW return imminently. Seemingly, that's what it sounds like. He's going to be the wild card into this. And what I think could happen is Moxley does somehow beat Page at All In. Moxley holds that belt until Wrestle Dream for this year. Whether it's going to be, Wrestle Dream's going to be in Seattle or Tacoma, Washington, like it was last year. And that's where we have Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship, where Darby will successfully beat Jon Moxley and become the new AEW World Champion in his hometown. This is going to be a problem. I think if Moxley holds the belt into Wrestle Dream, I think it's in a total of 9 months. This is going to be a problem. This is going to be a huge problem. And this could be something where, the tides can turn in a negative way if Adam Page doesn't walk out AEW All In World Heavyweight Champion. This could be a huge problem. Huge problem. And something that could severely bite them in the ass. And that's my biggest worry. I mean, I would love to have Adam Page walk in All In, beat Jon Moxley, and walk out AEW World Champion. Because I'm going to tell you guys this, too, when it pertains to Jon Moxley. When this is all said and done, and Jon Moxley does somehow lose that AEW's world title, it's still going to do Jon Moxley no justice at all. His stock has dropped severely. His legacy, I think, is tarnished ultimately in AEW for what he's done alone with this Death Rider situation. Jon Moxley is not going to walk out of this situation any way better than before he came into the Death Rider situation. This is going to be bad. I think Jon Moxley's entire legacy is going to be tarnished. And I think a lot of people are going to get sick and tired of seeing Jon Moxley, and they're going to be done with the Death Rider shit. It could come down to something where Jon Moxley might take some significant time off, and I think he needs that to try to rebuild whatever that he did have before this Death Rider shit happened, because people they're tired of seeing Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. Fans for AEW have been patiently waiting for Jon Moxley to drop that AEW World title. And Jon Moxley, I mean, it's getting to a point now where Jon Moxley seemingly is stepping on the heels of a Chris Jericho, Jeff Jarrett situation, where a lot of people are getting tired of seeing Jon Moxley on television. You know, because like I told you guys earlier, when it pertains to Jon Moxley and the Death Riders, this team, this stable, including Jon Moxley, are ultimately killing this company within. People are tired of seeing it, man. I mean, the shit is getting old, quick. And that was my biggest takeaway from the main event between Ospreay and Paige is, I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. And, you know, Tony Khan did the right thing by having Paige win this matchup. My issue with this, though, is Darby Allin. You know, the rumor and speculation that Jon Moxley will walk in All In and walk out of All In still AEW World Champion. And we're going to set up a matchup possibly for this year's Wrestle Dream where Moxley will defend the AEW World Championship against Darby Allin in his hometown, where Darby will, you know, become the hero, if you will, and walk out AEW World Champion and restore what people are hoping for, the feeling back for AEW. I don't, you know, to be honest with you, if that's the route that Tony Khan is possibly thinking of going, you want to talk about killing the momentum of Adam Page, number one. Number two, you're talking about something where you're still asking for us fans to still have faith in you with this company and within AEW after what happened and could possibly happen at All In. I'm telling you right now, man, if Jon Moxley walks in AEW World Champion, walks out AEW World Champion, there are going to be people that are going to be severely pissed off. Severely pissed off. And for Darby, you know, the thing of it is, Darby's going to have to come back to AEW television anyway. Because you're not going to just automatically throw this guy into a title shot. He needs matches. You know, he's been off the scene for a couple months. He needs to get back onto AEW television, have some matches, try to make himself a credible number one contender for the AEW World title. I don't want it to be, well, okay, he went out to Mount Everest, he comes back, and we're going to grant this guy a world title match. No. I want Darby Allin to earn it. Have a couple matches, actually solidify yourself as the new number one contender for the AEW World title. And then when that match happens, it will make a little bit more sense because now you are the new number one contender. But don't just give him a title match just because he climbed Mount Everest and he came back. It's a great accomplishment. It's a huge accomplishment. But just because he did that, don't bring him back into the fold. Okay, we're going to give him a title shot just because he climbed Mount Everest. That looks a little weak. So I don't know. To me, All In, it's going to be very telling. It's going to be very interesting to see how this is going to play out. I know that we will have Adam Page taking on Jon Moxley for the AEW World title. My biggest concern is Adam Page actually going to walk out All In AEW World Champion? Or is Tony Khan putting more faith into Jon Moxley and we're going to, drag this Jon Moxley Death Rider situation all the way out until October for Wrestle Dream, where Darby Allin will be the guy that dethrones Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship and walks out new AEW champion with Darby Allin. It's still yet to be seen, man, but I got a really bad feeling about this Adam Page Jon Moxley match at All In. For some reason, I just got that strange feeling that things might go bad as far as Adam Page not winning this title at All In. Just got that feeling, man. The other match I want to talk about, speaking of the Owen, is Mercedes Moné and Jamie Hayter. Now, I talked about this a little bit earlier in the show. It was the first match that kicked off Double or Nothing that happened on Saturday night. Was I mad about the outcome? No, because honestly, it was very predictable. A lot of the matches on this card alone were very, very predictable. But it's one of those things where I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, Toni Storm's not going to lose. Bro, they're pushing Mercedes Moné to the moon. And for those people that says, oh, well, she doesn't have creative control, that's 100% and utter bullshit. I told you guys, man, Moné's in business for herself. I know a lot of people were, that I talked to, we were like, man, you're talking about Zelina Vega the other day on SmackDown. My standpoint's still the same with Zelina Vega, just like it is Mercedes Moné. Moné is in business for herself. She is trying to raise her stock within AEW, so when the time comes and her contract comes up, and contract negotiations start to begin with her and Tony Khan in AEW, she does want to see what Triple H and Nick Khan and Ari Emanuel from TKO and WWE are going to offer her to bring her possibly back into the fold into WWE. And don't get it twisted, man. It's not that Mercedes Moné will not at least entertain the idea of having a meeting with WWE to figure out if she can come back to WWE and everything is set for her to come back into the fold of WWE. Because I don't see her sticking around AEW until the end of her career. I just don't see it. I don't. I think the reason why she's in AEW right now is because the last time that she tried to get back within WWE, she didn't go back because of the money situation, financial reasons. And that's why she signed on to AEW, because Tony Khan was willing to offer her whatever she wanted to bring her into the fold of AEW, and he's got the money to do it. WWE is a little bit more stingy on their money as far as how much money they're willing to fork out for said talent. So, Monet is in business for herself, and she's trying to do whatever she can within AEW to raise her stock, win championship titles, make herself into a viable product, so when her contract comes up, it can spark the interest once again from WWE to possibly bring in Mercedes Moné and have her go from Mercedes Moné to Sasha Banks and have her return as Sasha Banks in WWE. It's a big deal. It's a big move. And I'm sure WWE does want her back. I'm not, for what it's worth, I do think they want her back, but I think it has, it's not going to be as easy as people think. But she's trying to do whatever she can to raise her stock, make herself be the top dog in the, female locker room and in all women's wrestling, and she wants to be the top dog. So, you got to respect that. But in the aspect, too, it's very predictable in her matches with AEW. Which takes us to the matchup that she will have with Toni Storm at All In for the AEW Women's Championship. A lot of people want Toni Storm to win, myself included. But I think it's going to be Mercedes Moné. And, like I said, it was very predictable, man. This is the AEW's biggest show of the year. This is their WrestleMania. There's no way in hell you're not going to have one of your biggest stars with Mercedes Moné not a part of the show. I think they can do without Jamie Hayter, unfortunately, being a part of the show. But Mercedes Moné, there's no way. They're looking to overload this card. If you look at the matches now, we got Moné, Toni Storm, AEW Women's Championship. We have Jon Moxley defending the AEW World Title against Adam Page. It's, and more matches, honestly, eventually to be announced. But still, it's the biggest show of the year, bro. So there's no way in hell they were not going to have Mercedes Moné a part of the show. But we're going to see what happens, man. Am I worried that Toni Storm will drop the belt? Yeah, I think she will. I think it's going right to Mercedes Moné because, she hasn't lost a goddamn match. Anything can happen. And again, when it happens, I'll tell you guys, you know what? I was wrong. But right now, man, it just looks like she cannot lose. And some people are even speculating coming up this match with Jamie Hayter that, she lost the New Japan Strong Women's Championship. She might lose against Jamie Hayter. It's two different companies, bro. Two different companies, two different countries. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all focused on what she's doing in AEW. And right now in AEW, she's undefeated. And she just beat Jamie Hayter on Sunday night to walk into All In to face Toni Storm for the AEW Women's Championship. So clearly, Tony Khan and AEW have a lot invested in Mercedes Moné. One of the interesting matches that I did like was Mark Briscoe versus Ricochet in a stretcher match. I thought it was a great match. I thought it was a really good match. But I will also say this, just like a lot of the other matches on this card, this match could have main evented Dynamite or Collision. And a lot of these matches could, except for maybe 3 matches. A lot of the matches on this card could have easily main evented or co-main evented a Dynamite or Collision episode, especially the Mark Briscoe and Ricochet match. It was a great match, but this was easily something they could put on for Dynamite or as well as Collision. Same thing with Okada and Speedball Mike Bailey. It was very predictable because I can tell you right now, Tony Khan is trying to do whatever he can to book Okada versus Omega at All In for the AEW Continental title as well as the International title, and the winner will merge both titles. And Tony Khan wants to produce that match. He wants AEW to have an Omega and Okada matchup, and it's most likely going to take place at All In. So, again, they're going to be stacking All In from top to bottom. It's their biggest show of the year. So, when this match was announced between Okada and Speedball Mike Bailey, now credit, Mike Bailey has not been pinned in AEW since he's been with AEW. But it's just, the narrative was already there, bro. Okada was not losing this match because they're setting up a matchup between Omega and Okada at All In this year in Arlington, Texas. And they're going above and beyond, man. So it was, again, very predictable. A lot of the card on Double or Nothing for Sunday was very, very predictable. And it kind of just took away a lot from the event itself. Anarchy in the Arena, again, I actually enjoyed the match. I thought it was really good. I thought it was one of the best Anarchy in the Arenas that we've seen in quite some time. Swerve had a great entrance, as well as the Young Bucks. Having the music being played throughout the entire match. It's a great match, but do I think we need it every single year for Double or Nothing? No. I would use that match when you needed it. Kind of like how Hell in a Cell is now. We don't need, just because it's Double or Nothing, we don't need that match every single year. Use the match when it's most needed, when it's most important. And I would say this time it was needed. Because of the Death Riders and Jon Moxley. This was something that, the fans, as well as AEW, needed. And it turned out to be a great match. It was a great match, had a lot of good moments. You had the return of Hook. We don't know where his mindset is right now with the Ops and Samoa Joe. That's still yet to be seen. But, it was a great moment, man. It was always a good match. Usually they're good matches, but again, my only takeaway, we don't need to get this match every single year at Double or Nothing. And we had the Will Ospreay Adam Page match, Paragon versus the Don Callis family. I think my issue with that match is that you go from Anarchy in the Arena to this 6-man tag team match to Will Ospreay and Adam Page. Anarchy in the Arena should have been the co-main event, followed by Adam Page and Will Ospreay. You know what I mean? And the other thing about AEW that I'm not really too keen on, and I mentioned this multiple times in the past, and I'll say it one more time, is quality over quantity. Having 8 to 9 pay-per-view matches is just not necessary. I'd rather have the quality over quantity. Give me 5 to 6 matches that actually mean something and are storyline driven than 8 or 9 matches that really don't give a shit about what happens in the match or where it's going because there's no storyline, there's no sense of direction for these matches. That I cannot stand. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying WWE is any better because, like I told you guys before, for Saturday Night's Main Event, I mean, it was more commercials alone than it was wrestling at Saturday Night's Main Event that took place on Saturday. So, I mean, it's damn if you do, damn if you don't. But, it's gonna, like I said, man, it's gonna be very telling to see what happens with Double or Nothing moving forward, as well as Mercedes Moné and Adam Page. Those 3 matches alone were the best matches of the night. Adam Page, Ospreay, Moné versus Hayter, and the Anarchy in the Arena match. Other than that, the rest of those matches could have been a part of Dynamite, if not Collision. It was not needed, not necessary. It was just a waste of time, and a lot of it was just, I felt like it was a lot of filler matches just for us to get to these other matches that everybody was caring about as far as Ospreay, Page, Anarchy in the Arena, and Moné and Jamie Hayter. Even though Hayter and Moné kicked off the night. So, we'll see what happens, man. I think for me personally, though, as a fan, I was excited. I was happy for Adam Page. I'm looking forward to All In, where Page will face off against Moxley for the AEW World title. But I have my concerns, man, like I mentioned earlier. I do. There's a very good chance, I'm just letting you all know this now, there's a very good chance that Jon Moxley will walk in All In and walk out of All In still AEW World Champion. And if that happens, I think all hell will break loose within AEW. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW's Double or Nothing. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful.